Before we get started, make sure you hit like and subscribe to your favorite Average to Good podcast. That is in order, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to Call It What You Want, your favorite Average to Good podcast. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Jesse Marsch. We have a great show for you today, following a big weekend around the world for our player pool, the U.S. men's national team. We're going to talk about Sergiño Dest, his future with PSV. Is it there? Is it somewhere else? Back to Barcelona. Alec Tillman going to be staying with PSV. That's exciting. We're going to get into some headlines. We'll see if we can keep it quick. Probably not, because that's not our style. We're going to do a weekend abroad. We're going to see where everybody, who was good, who was bad. And then we talk a little Cavan Sullivan, amongst other players that we'll get into today, as he becomes the youngest player to ever play in an MLS game. And apparently he's got a bright future. Anyway, before we get started, we got to do the Call It What You Want word of the day. And I'm here with Jesse and Charlie, as I mentioned. Guys, you ready for this?
Yes.
Born ready.
Clearly you gave Charlie the answer.
That's not true.
Last week. So
that
let's have
okay. That makes me feel good.
No,
it makes me feel good when I'm
come on.
Good. Let's go.
You nailed it right out.
All right.
China.
Okay, for this week's word, though, we're going to focus on the most stressful job in the game, the coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe the referee could be in there too, but we're going to say the coach.
Slight advantage here, but okay.
Okay. So in this part of the world, this coach is known as Trainara. So you two, anyone watching,
I got
of course, or listening, who wants to play along? What language is this?
I'm gonna go.
I thought you were gonna say like Jefe or Mister.
Mister.
The way you said it the second time kind of gave it away. I'm gonna go somewhere in Scandinavia.
Do you guys want the clues, or are you just gonna go right into jumping in?
I am going Scandinavia. I'm going Denmark.
He's going Denmark. All right.
Do you want the clues? Or you're just gonna rip.
I'll wait for the clues.
Okay. So just so everybody's clear,
you have nothing to lose by guessing.
That's true. We probably should put things in place.
All right, Finland. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so
Finland.
For people playing at home too, hopefully you've already got the answer over these two guys. But here's the first clue: this country's football federation is the only European federation to reject the introduction of VAR.
Sweden. Got it. Done.
Charlie Davies!
Yes!
He played in Sweden.
I know. The fact that
and
he didn't get it right off, and then said Finland, he should be deducted points.
Because I was kind of thinking it was Sweden, but I didn't want to say Sweden and be like, dude, played in Sweden. It's not Swedish. So all right,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I got it.
That's fair.
So wait, you played in Sweden and didn't know what your coach was called.
Tony Gustafsson didn't really need to go by trying.
That's not a great sign, Jimmy. I mean, that's not a great sign that he didn't know what this coach was called.
That's true. But I understand the rationale of guessing that and then feeling like an idiot that it wasn't.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not going Sweden first.
I understand.
Okay.
All right, before we get into the headlines, though, let's get into one of the bigger stories. We can explore this a little bit. It's about Sergiño Dest. Now, shout out to Tillman, who I just mentioned is going to be signed on a permanent deal with PSV from Bayern Munich. That's awesome. We're excited for him. And obviously, he had a terrific season being a part of the Eredivisie champions this year. But Sergiño Dest, PSV has come out and announced that they're going to pass on making his deal permanent. And so the big question is this just a move, knowing that the value that he once was at is not the same because he had that ACL tear? Jesse, I'll come to you first. Or do you really feel like PSV is just ready to move on from him, and then it's going to be up to Barcelona to find a different destination because him and Xavi don't really see eye to eye?
Well, I would think, first of all, if he was healthy, that this would be I think they would, if they could, they would buy him, right? He's had a great year for PSV. I think he's been one of their best players. And he's played on the left, on the right. He's filled in a lot of gaps for them whenever they've needed it. He's been outstanding this year. So I don't know that it's really a true indication of what the club thinks about him. The next part is, does PSV have enough money to buy him, or is Sergiño's price tag above what they could offer? And then is Sergiño's ambition higher than PSV, even though he's had a great year, So there's a number of factors that we'd have to consider before we'd actually know what's happening behind the scenes. But nonetheless, I do think that in general, Sergiño Dest is his level and quality is above the Dutch league, right? And even though they're champions and they're playing in Champions League, I think he needs to be tested at a higher level, and he's a better player than. And even though now Holland is the 5th in the quotient, the European quotient, I still think he's a top 4. He belongs in the top 4 leagues.
Okay, so Chuck, then where would be a nice fit for him? Let's just say it doesn't work at PSV. Barcelona doesn't want to sign him. Where do you think would be a good fit? And I'm just going to jump in and say that I think Bayer Leverkusen, and given the way that they play, would be a nice fit. I don't think he's going to end up at Bayer Leverkusen, but I'm just saying a team that has that type of system where they have Frimpong on one side, Grimaldo on the other, just bombing up and down, would be a nice fit for him. And I wonder if you think there are other teams out there that or if you even agree with that would be a similar spot where he could really showcase what he does best, which is getting forward.
Well, you must have been reading my mind, because that's exactly what I was going to say. In terms of if Frimpong leaves Bayer Leverkusen, which I know teams are interested in, I mean, he'll have a high price tag, but it seems to me that most of the Bayer Leverkusen players will be staying put because they don't need to sell anyone, and they're playing in Champions League. So why wouldn't you see this one out and see how far they can go, given they haven't lost in 40 plus matches, right? So I think for me, the Bundesliga would be the right step for him in a wingback spot. You got to think Frimpong, he's not the most defensive minded wingback. He's more of an attacking minded, same like with Grimaldo. And that type of setup with that philosophy from your wingbacks, that will suit Sergiño Dest. And to answer Jesse's question on where Sergiño Dest thinks his ability lies and what he thinks of himself, I think he's already made it clear that PSV aren't quite at the level that he sees himself at competing at on the regular. I think it's tough when you go to a club, you leave Ajax in the history that club has, go to a Barcelona that, yes, it's a step back to go to PSV, but it's to find his feet, and he played in Champions League, but in his mind, he conquered that, right? He was above that. He doesn't want to go back down to that level. In his mind, he wants to play in the Champions League, wants to play in the biggest clubs in the world and stay in that level. But ultimately, I think he's going to have to find himself in the Bundesliga. The problem is he's not healthy, and you're going to have to wait 6 months to get back on the pitch, right? To just get back on the pitch. And clubs aren't going to invest a whole lot of money in someone who's coming back from an ACL. You got to prove that you're back, prove that you're fit, and you didn't lose a step or two before those conversations can really start again.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what Barcelona does with this situation. I mean, I think they'll be respectful, of course, and polite, but it doesn't mean they necessarily want him playing for his team. Jesse, I actually want to get your thoughts on Dest and where you think a great spot would be for him, and if you agree with Chuck that it's in the Bundesliga as an option. But I do want to compare the best seasons of Dest's career. 2020, 2021 was with Barcelona. He had 44 appearances that season, 33 starts, 2,800 minutes overall, 3 goals, 1 assist. Now, that was primarily under Ronald Koeman, who really valued Sergiño Dest when he brought to the table. Once Xavi came in, obviously a different story. Then this year with PSV, 33 appearances, 32 starts, 2,700 minutes, 2 goals, 7 assists. When the guy's healthy and playing, he does make a difference for his respective clubs. But where do you think would be a good destination for him, Jesse?
Yeah, I think, like you said, Charlie, I think first, it's unlikely that anything happens this summer. The timing of this injury is really bad for him, given it's the end of a loan, given there's Copa America in the summer. And if anything's going to happen, it's likely to happen in the winter, right? And European standards for ACL are usually more like 8 months. The most places here in Europe, they don't look to rush players back. They look to build a really good foundation. And the studies have shown that if you take longer in your recovery, that the strength and ability to come back and have no setbacks is better. So that 8 months, that means that he's looking at being back, training in like November. And if that's the, November, December. So if that's the case, then maybe he gets himself in a few matches, or he's healthy again, and maybe even training with the team, and then maybe is able to make a transfer at that point. But listen, he could play a lot of places. Of course, like you'd want to supplement him in teams that want to attack and play with a wide wing back that can get up and down the pitch, and he's able to do so many of these things. I've said all along that I think the main thing for him is if he can continue to develop himself defensively, and if he can develop a really strong defensive mentality, and now in 1v1 situations, because he's got a low center of gravity, he should be able to do well even against really good attackers. If he adds that to his repertoire, then you can start to place him amongst the best fullbacks in the world, really. And then I think he'd have lots of options. So that's going to be his biggest challenge is in his overall development. Can he show that he can defend? We saw in Nations League when he played against Chucky Lozano that he almost, shut him down for the whole match. If he can now perform like that week in and week out, I think his upside is huge.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. Chuck, actually, I want to get into headlines, and as our resident number 9, the first one's coming to you. Okay, so we're going to pivot here into headlines, and obviously there's plenty of time to talk about Sergiño Dest because his injury is not going away for quite some time. And we'll get into Tillman as well at some point. But I want to get into the headlines. We're going to start with Jesus Ferriera. The 23-year-olds, by the way, only 23, Jesus Ferriera, entered the record books on Saturday night in MLS, becoming the youngest player in league history, to score 50 regular season goals. For perspective, only 80 players in MLS history have scored more than 50 goals. And I will just state for the record, fun fact, everybody, me, Jesse, and Charlie are not part of those 80, unfortunately. Diego Fagundes was the youngest. Tati Castellanos was third. Landon Donovan was fourth. Carlos Ruiz, El Pescadito was fifth. This is a quote here from Jesus Ferriera. Then, Chuck, I'm going to throw it over to you. My goal here is to break records and write history, especially create my own history. This is the club that I grew up with, watching and playing. It has a lot of meaning to me to have this record. So, Chuck, Jesus Ferriera, obviously an incredible record to have. Will he ever break back into the national team? Because it's not looking great for him at the moment.
Not as a number 9. That he's not a striker, a lone striker at the international stage. But what I will say is the first to 50 goals, youngest to 50 goals, is an incredible accomplishment for Jesus Ferriera. And there's been a lot of pressure put on him. In some instances unfairly, but he's delivered for FC Dallas. So you got to stand up and give him his credit. He's a good kid. He's trying to do the best he can, and ultimately it's just another step in his career. He still has a long way to go. So now for him, the goal should be, all right, if I'm staying in MLS and I'm not going to get a move abroad to Europe, which I think is ultimately what he'd want to do. If that doesn't come, then the quickest to 100 would be something that he should be aiming for. Like, always continue to set these goals, but incredible start to his young career.
Yeah, there's some talent or some things that he does that I really value. And I thought he scored a good goal this weekend where he kind of got in behind, ran off the back shoulder of the center back, and good pass by his teammate Musa. But anyway, we'll get into him a little bit later. We got to make these quick. I was going to get it over to Jesse, but Jesse, I'm going to throw this one over to you. The Copa America roster now for Mexico has been announced, and there are 3 big names that have been left off. Memo Ochoa, who just saves all kinds of shots for fun, unless he's playing against the U.S. He played in 5 World Cups. He's out. So Memo Ochoa is out for the Copa America. Raul Jimenez, the 32-year-old striker who has played in 3 World Cups, is out for the Copa America. And Chucky Lozano, who you brought up just right now, Jesse, also out, even though he just won the Eredivisie with PSV with all of our Americans there as well. Now, I want to get to a quote here from Jaime Lozano, the coach of Mexico. He said he spoke to all the players to let them know that he took the decision. That doesn't mean they're out of the process for the 2026 World Cup. They just want to watch other players. And I want to give up some context here. 10 of the players that are on this roster are 23 or younger, which is probably signifying a type of maybe changing of the guard, as it were, for the Mexican national team. Is this too little, too late? How do you feel about these moves, Jesse?
I understand them. I don't necessarily agree with them. I think you have to take each situation in isolation and decide what the value is to the team. but clearly something's not working in Mexico, right? They're not at the level that they've been at historically, and they've got to identify how they're going to move forward. You could look at what U.S. soccer did, right, 5 years ago, and the fact that we invested in a young group and thought about developing this group of players to be successful in 2022, but really with an eye on 2026. Is there enough time for young players right now to develop in the next 2 years? I think there still is. And this is probably the last chance that you have to really do that, to really integrate some younger players where you'll have a longer camp. You'll be together for a longer time. You can build in some of the tactics and you can see if they hold up in some real matches. So I'm always for giving young players chances, but it's always who, what, where, and how does it apply to the overall group? So it'll be interesting to track. That's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Lozano, he gets hot and cold for me. So giving some other guys a chance will be interesting. I believe Henry Martin also is not in this roster, and he's been selected a few times over Santi Jimenez, amongst other strikers in particular. So that's an interesting one. But maybe you lose a little bit in the leadership department, especially from Memo Ochoa. So I'm curious to see who fills in that type of void. All right, moving into, actually, I should say this. Mexico playing Group B in Copa America. They're taking on Jamaica first, and then Venezuela, and then Ecuador.
Ooh,
I'd like to think they're going to get through that group. But you never know. You still got to go out there and perform. You can't sleep on any three of those teams. All right, next headline. It's the U.S. men's Olympic soccer team. They're playing their last friendly before the Olympics, Chuck, on June 11th in Kansas City at Sporting Park. All right, Sporting Park, my old club, getting a big game. And they're taking on Japan. Now, the coach for the U23s, Marko Mitrovic, said this: we've had a number of productive training camps in preparation for the Olympics. We're excited to play in front of American fans in our last game before we travel to France. It's important for us to continue building towards the Olympics, and we know that Japan will provide a strong test. Now, Japan qualified for the Olympics by winning the 2024 AFC U23 Asian Cup earlier this month. And what's fun is that we beat these guys back in October 4-1 in Phoenix, if everybody remembers that. That was pretty early game in Mitrovic's reign. Johan Gomez scored, Paxton Aronson scored, Aiden Morris scored, and Duncan McGuire also hit the back of the net. And obviously we had those recent friendlies where we beat Guinea 3-0 and had to come from behind 2-2 draw against France. This is a pretty good opponent, Chuck, all things considered, to play before we head to the Olympics.
Aren't we getting Mitrovic on this podcast here soon? Isn't he coming in? When is that? No,
we've been waiting on you, Jesse, to like flex on him and be like, "Hey, we need you on the show," because otherwise he's been saying,
Jimmy,
no.
your pull isn't the same as what it used to be. It's not the same.
No, that's 100% true. I don't know.
TV would have gotten him. Kick TV,
it's like we
would have gotten him.
It's like we went to a Nations League events and maybe some people weren't happy with what we were talking about.
Oh boy.
Just throwing that out there. Chuck, Japan, talk to me. This is a good opponent. Good opponent.
Yeah, it's a good opponent. But ultimately, I'm really curious who the three overage players are going to be and how they complement the squad. And I think that's going to tell a lot of the direction for this group in terms of how aggressive are they going after gold. I think that'll be a good insight into the future of this Olympic team, you know, and just, I guess, the commitment, the level of commitment from U.S. Soccer in terms of who they can get. Are the clubs allowing these players to go to the games? It seems like every other country are trying to bring their biggest players as well, especially France, because it is in their home country. So. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm really, really intrigued who the three will be.
All right, so Guinea won the playoff, as a fun fact, everybody, to qualify for the Olympics over the weekend, and they're in the USA's group, and so it's nice that we got to play against them prior to that.
Yeah,
all right,
a little precursor.
It was. I'm actually going to jump our order here because I think it's a nice segue into the Paris Olympics overall, and French President Emmanuel Macron wants Kylian Mbappe to be one of the overage players to help them win gold medal. It makes a ton of sense. So I get why they'd want that. I don't know if Real Madrid or whatever club that Mbappe is going to go to, most likely Real Madrid.
We should ask Biden who he wants. Who does Biden want
it.
As the older?
Yeah, exactly, Jesse. So who do you think Biden should pick up the phone and be like, hey, listen, we need
Pulisic.
blank. Is it Christian Pulisic? Is that your?
He'd probably go with some. He'd probably go with some aid. Like he'd probably go with like the oldest players we could put on the roster, considering how old he is in the presidency. So I think he'd probably pick you two. He'd pick you two. So Charlie Davies, Jimmy Conrad, and probably Tony Meola as the three.
That would be amazing. That would be what a throwback it would be to see Chuck placing them back up again.
With Ream.
Sorry, President Biden. Sorry.
He straight up took shots. Oh my Lord.
I love that. Yeah, I actually think Pulisic would be my choice.
The new manager for Milan's like, no.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah. One of our producers or Avis and says Ream went to high school with Biden. That's how old he is. That's a shot. I'm reading that one out loud.
Whoa. That one's coming from Ives. Tim Ream's coming from Ives too.
Tim, we're putting a name to that. We're putting a name to that quote. That is amazing. All right, so we'll get back now into the other order. Last story in our headlines: Gianni Infantino slams the pay-to-play model here in the United States. He said this, and I quote, "We need to invest in the players because we want to show the kids who play soccer when they are at school or when they are very young that there's a path in soccer to glory to become one of these world stars." He also added, "One of the things that shocked me here in America is that children have to pay in order to play. We have to stop this." Jesse Marsch, your thoughts on Gianni Infantino's comments and just the pay-to-play model overall in the U.S.?
Yeah, he's right. It's crazy. I used to pay like between $5,000 and $10,000 for each of my children to play youth soccer in America when I was there. And then I moved to Germany, Austria, and it was free. It was nothing, literally nothing, zero. And all the kids in these communities all play football. They're all from socioeconomic, cultural, diverse backgrounds. And it gives all of them the opportunity to achieve and live out their dreams. So I don't see how you can support pay to play. Who in the world is going to go, yeah, this is the best way to get our best players? It's not. It's
a capitalistic society.
I'll tell you, it's often so foreigners can come over from England, right? From different countries in Europe, sometimes from South America, and they can make money off of our suburban kids and families and become, and make living in the US sustainable. And so I don't get me wrong, my kids have had good coaches that fit these categories, but it's not the best way to develop players. There's no one who can step forward and say this is the best way. And it's sad, right? But I don't know. Like, let's give Infantino all of the resources and money that he wants to try to change this. And I just say to him, good luck.
That already?
It's such an entrenched part. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going.
Too many people are making money, a lot of money, off of basically hoarding kids to sign. And I'm involved in the youth system now here in this country, coaching my boys who are 8. So, I'm getting a chance to see in the club youth system, because when we were growing up, it was pretty straightforward. Every club had one team. You played a state championship. And then if you won the states, you go to regionals, and you win regionals, you go to nationals. And it was that. And then you had ODP on the side. That was kind of the carrot to if you weren't scouted in the club system and maybe your team didn't win states or didn't win regionals, then you would get the opportunity to go to ODP and show your quality and then obviously represent your state and play against other states. Now you have different leagues. So, and sometimes let's say you have a club team, the league can say, we don't want you in our league. So then you're left with, where do we play? And parents don't know if this elite team is competing against this elite team and how do you value which league is better and where do you get the best competition for your kid or the best training? So it's a complete mess. And what it comes down to is there's an influx of kids. Every child wants to play soccer, essentially. If you're playing sports, soccer is the one to play because you meet the most people, the most diverse people. It's a fun game. You learn a lot of great lessons and values from it. So kids play, and ultimately you have different levels, but clubs don't care. They'll make 4 teams if they can per age group because that's a check. And their kids are paying from $1,800 a season to $4,000-5,000 in some cases for these academies, which it's mind-boggling. So I think when you're trying to break down pay to play in this country, good luck, because it's all about profit in a lot of cases. Not everyone. There are people who really genuinely care about the development and growth of youth in this country, learning the game the right way. But from what I've seen with my own eyes, there are a number of teams and kids that don't even know the proper technique of passing a ball and controlling a ball, yet their parents are shelling out $2,500 a year for their kids to get the quality training or quality competition. And it's sad. It really is. So
I have so much to say about this, and this probably wasn't a quick headline that we needed to put last before our
sorry, Des.
This is an entire episode. This is an entire show.
It is an entire episode.
I'm venting because I see it every weekend. Every weekend I see it. And I get so frustrated. And I don't even want to get into some of the referees. They say, oh, there's a shortage in referees, so we got to hire anybody who wants to go out there. And now we're seeing the game look even more upside down when you have people out there who don't even know the basic rules of the game.
Chuck, you're trying to trigger me right now. We got to take our first break and call it what you want. When we come back,
oh my God, I just snapped
this, or we'll get into Americans abroad. One of the two things. So don't go anywhere.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
The madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Wow.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back to Call What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Jesse Marsch, Charlie Davies. We're going to do a little Americans abroad. Some big performances from some of our guys. We're going to start with Christian Pulisic, scored a brace, takes his season tally to 15 goals in all competitions, 12 in Serie A.
That's what I said.
Jesse and Charlie,
that's
both,
what I said.
Both you guys predicted that.
That's what he said. And that's what I said about his Serie A tally. So I feel good.
Wow. Bunch of geniuses over here on the show. Maybe a little bit better than average to good at this particular moment. Tyler Adams, he's back. He makes a cameo in defeat to Brentford. It was 0-0 when he came on with 9 minutes left to go, and somehow they lost.
Exactly what Jesse predicted. This is exactly the timing Jesse predicted.
And then
they had a goal called back, a narrow offside goal called back too. So he made an impact when he came in.
He did. He made an impact. Covers so much ground. Anytime I see him, like, God, he covers so much ground. Anyway, Nico Gioacchini and Como secure automatic promotion to Serie A. First time back in the top division in Italy in 21 years. Cameron Carter-Vickers plays full 90 in a 2-1 Old Firm win between Celtic and Rangers. Celtic taking steps to being that much closer to winning the Scottish Premiership this year. And I love those games, by the way. The atmosphere of the Old Firm is ridiculous. I want to go to one at some point. Josh Sargent subbed off in a goalless promotion playoff semifinal in the first leg against Leeds. 84 minutes he played and came off. Apparently, they're not too worried. He should be able to play in leg 2 at Ellen Road, but he still came off pretty quiet, I thought, throughout that match in particular. And before we get into the players that we're gonna pick to talk about, Jesse, is it hard to watch Leeds in this particular situation, or how do you watch it at all? You still have an emotional attachment? I'm sure you do. Like, what? Give us an update on that. I'm curious.
No. Listen, there's so many players on that team that I still really like and want to see do well. Specifically, some of the young guys, like Archie Gray, Nanto, Somerville, Reuter. Some of these players, I think, have big futures. So I'm glad to see them having good seasons, and that the club has settled in. And obviously, it's really important that they find a way to get back in the Premier League. So yeah, good luck to them. I think, is the match on Thursday? Are they playing Thursday?
I believe it's Wednesday or Thursday, but it's 0-0 going into leg 2. They're in the championship semifinal.
Both games were rather dull.
Yeah, that's not
you can say that
so much at stake. So much at stake.
It's you're playing with fear. Thursday. It's a little bit of we're not making the mistake. We'll
don't lose.
We'll keep it close. Yeah. Exactly. Don't lose.
Don't want to lose in leg 1.
Jinx.
So Leeds will play on Thursday at home against Norwich, and we'll see how that one plays out. All right, Chuck, I'm going to come to you first. Who is a player that stood out for you this weekend that you want to highlight?
I don't know. Could it be a Christian Pulisic?
Okay.
What? I mean, you set it up. It's hard to grasp the fact that Christian Pulisic leaving Chelsea in the form that he did, kind of felt like, oh, he can't play at this level. He's not consistent enough. He can't stay healthy, that he can't play at a big club and excel. Here he is in his first season playing for one of the most historic clubs in the world and killing it. And season 1, and there's been no mistake about his quality, and no questioning his quality, because he's committed to the team. He gets back, he tracks back, he defends, he gets in the attack, he comes inside, he combines, he's been honest with his work rate, and then he delivers. And I think that's where we've seen the growth from him. Now he can play across the front three. He can play on the left side, he can play on the right side, he can play centrally. His value and stock has just skyrocketed. So as good as he's done this year, I think we can all agree he can play better, which is a gift and a curse, because now you're held to this standard at the very minimum, which is good. We want our players to be held to the highest standard, and I think he hasn't reached his potential yet. So I couldn't be more excited for his success. How many conversations I've had with him. He's such a great kid. He deserves it. He's worked hard for this moment. And I think it sets him up well for another season in Serie A, and then leading into the World Cup in 2026. I think his confidence will be in a whole nother stratosphere.
Well, Chuck, to piggyback off of your thoughts, Stefano Pioli, the current manager of AC Milan, we'll see what his future holds. Christian, he says this: Christian is a great pro and a great player due to his quality, his decision-making, intensity, and how he trains. It's impossible to play to your full potential in a first year of Italian football, but he's done well. I have a lot to dissect with that. It's impossible to play well in your full potential. Anyway,
well, what he's saying is he's still got a ways to go.
Yeah,
he's played incredibly well, and this isn't his ceiling, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It does seem like a backhanded compliment. It does seem like a backhanded compliment.
Thank you, Jesse. There is a little something there, but he also added he's performed consistently. He's a great player, and I think he can get even better, which is what you were saying as well, Chuck. I think what's interesting, Jesse, is that, and I want you to get some thoughts here on Christian, is that he had 15 goals in all comps. And what was nice about the first goal this past weekend was that Rafael Leao actually passed him the ball. Shout out to Rafael Leao for giving the rock to Christian, which set him in. I think there were more moments throughout the season where we would always come on here, and after the weekend, man, if Leao just would have played it across, then Christian would have had a tap in. And obviously, I'm a huge Leao fan, but there were moments where he could have been a little bit more unselfish in certain situations. And we could be talking about Christian scoring 20 goals in all comps. And so I think I think there's a lot of room for him to continue to score goals.
Yeah, I'd say the big matches, right? It's the big ones that means everything to the fans, that means everything to the club, whether it's Champions League, whether it's the big Serie A matches.
He scored in a Champions League final.
Yeah, what I'm saying is taking control of these matches with Milan, and that's the next evolution of Christian, being the go-to guy. Well, similar to what we saw with Eden Hazard with Chelsea. The ball's at his feet.
I would argue Christian has always been a good player, right? And just because at Chelsea he didn't have a manager that wanted to give him more time and more reps over some of the other players, he's already, you say at a big club, he's already done it at Dortmund, right? He was a key player in Dortmund. And when I first went to Germany, everyone in Germany talked about Christian Pulisic being the best attacking player in that country. Right. And that's with the likes of Marco Reus, Lewandowski, and those guys were obviously more established, but they were saying the next up and coming attacking player. Everyone in Germany had massive respect for Pulisic. And so Chelsea, was the timing right? Was it the right move? I thought it was. And I was really happy to see him go there. And he just never really got, even when we spoke to him after the Nations League Cup final or whatever they call that, he said it's just nice to feel trusted again, right? And get reps and feel like I can play and play week in and week out. Not worry if I make a mistake that I'm not going back on the pitch. And that's what he looks like. To me, he looks confident. He looks like he's enjoying things. I agree with you. I think if Milan had more structure in some of the things they did in the attacking third, instead of just give it to Leao and see what he does, and maybe that's not the plan, but that certainly looks like the plan most days. Yeah, I think they need more connections and ideas with how they move the ball and what kind of movements they like in the box, what kind of crosses. For me, it doesn't look concrete enough. And that's where I think each player is almost left on his own to create his opportunities. And thus Leao gets the ball a lot and takes it on his own. And there's not been a lot of a connection with how it works with Christian and Giroud and everyone else. So in the end, he's a quality player, man. He always has been. I think now hopefully he can really get himself on track and continue to grow and become the great player that we all know he can become.
Would you say he's world class?
Well, we talked about him not being in the top 100. And I thought he's on the cusp. I think he's on the cusp. But again, when you talk about the best players in the world, right? World-class players. They're playing in big clubs week in and week out, Champions League, semifinals, finals, World Cups, playing for the best countries. Yeah, I mean, he has a ways to go, I think, to establish himself at that level.
Chuck, it's how do you define world-class? I mean, is it basically Messi and then we're just working backwards? No. I think there are moments for a lot of players, but Christian included, where you'll see him do something that cannot be anything but defined as world class. But can you do those things consistently? Can you always make the high level and best decision under any kind of duress in any kind of situation? Can you exploit numerical advantages? Can you bring other people into the game at the right time? I mean, there's so many little things. So I guess it really depends. But I do think at moments he definitely has world class quality. But to Jesse's point, can you see that consistently and can, instead of it just being flashes here and there? What I love about the Christian Pulisic situation at the moment is that, one, he's healthy and it's clear that he's thriving when he's healthy. But secondly, if I'm the new manager that's coming in to Milan next season, I'm thinking, this is my guy. Like it's not like this is a guy that's a spot starter. I think you're looking at him, you're looking at Leao, and you're thinking, these are my guys. I'm building around these guys. And I think that's exciting for him in particular, where I don't think he's had that in quite some time. And obviously, you're scoring goals and playing well and being sharp is going to make a big difference. All right, we got a little sidetrack because we got to give Christian Pulisic some love. It's obviously been a hell of a season for him in Serie. Jesse, coming to you. Who is the player that stood out for you this past weekend?
I went with Chris Richards. 6 games, 5 wins, 1 draw. Ole Glasner, my man, is doing a great job at Palace, playing some dynamic.
Yeah, what has he done different? For everybody that doesn't know, Oliver Glasner came in. He's during Crystal Palace's they looked like they were in a bit of a free fall. Roy Hodgson obviously got sick, and we hope that he's okay and will maintain to be okay. But he come in and really injected this new sense of identity, and the players clearly have bought in. They're playing really well, as you mentioned.
He brought a system, a dynamic system, an aggressive system, the exact opposite of what Palace was doing beforehand. And Palace is a squad with incredible athleticism, incredible individual talent. And it needed Roy Hodgson for me has been one of the greatest managers over the last 30 years in terms of the places he's gone, the success he's had, the impact he's had on people, the kind of person he is. But Oliver Glasner plays, for me, modern football, very organized, very structured, very dynamic, has a clear system and knows how to instruct it to his players. He was an assistant coach at Red Bull Salzburg. He was the head coach at LASK. And this is where he developed his system, really, was at LASK. And so he's a really good coach. And I think he's brought the best out of these players. Even how he uses Olise now. Olise sometimes plays as the striker, right? And now you see him getting in on breakaways, creating 1v1 situations, scoring goals. He turned Olise into a world-class player, which, by the way, I've always thought that he is. He just needed more instruction in terms of what it needed to look like tactically. And so for me, he's done a great job. And then, Chris Richards is slotted in the 3 in the back on the left. And, he's been really aggressive. I think he's learned how to forward defend, how to press into the midfield, which is a big part of Ole Glasner's system. So you see him a lot of times stepping in. So we talked about him being used as a 6. Now defensively, what he can do is he can often in build up and in positions where they need him to have stability, be a center back. But when they're pressing, he's able to step into the midfield and almost press like a 6. So it gets the best out of both worlds out of Chris Richards. So I think he's fit in perfectly into this system. So really happy for Ole Glasner, really happy for Chris Richards. He's found I think a system, a coach, a team where now he can play at his best.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I'm excited that Chris Richards is being someone that's being trusted with that type of responsibility. And man, Palace has looked very good. And I'm very curious now as to what this means for their summer transfer window and where they try to build and gain. And shout out to Glasner once again. He's done a hell of a job taking over for Roy Hodgson. Okay, I'm going to go Tyler Adams. I already mentioned him earlier. He only played 9 minutes, but man, a lot happened in his 9 minutes. This is his third Premier League appearance this season. He's only played 118 total minutes, but I've loved every single one of those minutes, everybody. I'll be honest. And I can't wait for him to be on the Copa America roster because this is just all we needed. Just a little glimmer of hope that he's healthy, because not only do I think he's important on the field for the U.S., I also think he is a tremendous leader for the team off the field, and I think his presence will be necessary.
He's got about 1 month. He's got about 1 month.
That's it. What else does he need? He's
fully
fine.
fit.
He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine. That's me looking glass half full. All right. So we're nearing the end of the season, and that means there's going to be some winners and losers in the promotion relegation side of life for our players that are playing in Europe in particular. So we're going to get into the winners first. If you guys want to comment on any of them, just hop in. Then we'll get into the losers, and we'll get into our midweek fixtures for everybody to look at this weekend. But we're going to start with the winners. Cameron Carter-Vickers and Celtic, as we mentioned before, on the brink of Scottish Premiership title. They had a big 2-1 win over Rangers. They went up 2-0 and gave up a late goal. Not a late goal, but they gave up a goal to make it 2-1. Made it a little bit tighter than maybe it should, but Celtic are fun. And those games are so intense. Man, played in an old firm must be pretty rad. Como, as I mentioned before, secure promotion, but will Nico Giacchini get to play in Serie A next season? We'll have to wait and find out. St. Pauli and Texas-born Fabian Herzler secured promotion to the Bundesliga. Shout out to St. Pauli for getting back up to the top division. Nottingham Forest, all but safe. Despite losing to Chelsea, they have a 3-point advantage and superior goal difference over Luton, so they should be okay. Gio Reyna did not dress for this game. Yikes. Okay, Christopher Lund and Palermo beat Sudatrol to secure home field advantage against Sampdoria in the first round of the promotion playoff in Serie B. That game will happen. Sutiro. Yeah, sorry, I read that wrong. Thanks for the production. Anytime I'm getting corrected by Jesse Marsch on pronunciation, not a good day for me, so I'm on the losers bracket here. Liga MX trio advanced to the Clausura semifinals. Kate Cal and Alejandro Zendejas will cross paths on Wednesday. Well, Brandon Vasquez will face Cruz Azul. Okay, let's go to the losers. Gianluca Busio and Tanner Tessman, Venezia, they lose to Spezia after having the lead. They're going to meet Palermo, or the winner of Palermo Sampdoria, in the promotion playoffs. That was a heartbreaker for them. Luca de la Torre and Celta Vigo lost to Atletico Madrid. They're 5 points above the relegation places with 3 games to go in La Liga. Josh Sargent, as I mentioned before, subbed off against Leeds due to ankle issues. We'll see if he plays in leg 2. And Brendan Aronson and Union Berlin fall to 16th in the relegation playoff. Wait. Can we talk about the Bundesliga really quick? Because the bottom of the table is absolutely crazy. Darmstadt definitely getting relegated. FC Cologne, who played against Union, were down 2-0 to Union and then came back and scored 3 goals, which ruined Charlie's bets for morning footy. I'm competing with him in that, so I'm not too sad overall. But Union Berlin are completely falling apart, losing 5 out of their last 6. Cologne has 27 points. That's an automatic relegation spot. But Union Berlin have 30. Okay, and then
yeah, so they could overtake Union. They could overtake Union.
And then Mainz is on 32 points. They're outside of it in 15th. And then Bochum has 33.
And Bochum still's in danger.
I know. It's absolutely crazy. So there's like 4 teams that all these different iterations could play out. And Union Berlin and Brendan Aronson could get relegated. You know what? I'll just say this. I'm going to raise my hand. It wouldn't be a good look for Brendan Aronson if he was part of 2 back-to-back relegated seasons. I'm just saying that overall. I know that he's not responsible. He didn't play as much as I'm sure he would have liked for Union. But, yeah.
Catching strays. He's catching strays right now.
Well, I'm just stating facts.
He was part of 2 championship seasons. He was part of 2 championship seasons in Salzburg.
That's fair. I'm just saying.
And now by the way, Salzburg's in second with 1 game left.
Do they have a chance to get first?
It could be the first time Salzburg loses in 11 years. 12 years? 11 years?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so exciting times. Obviously, some big games coming up for a lot of our players and their respective clubs. But the biggest one that we're looking at for this midweek fixture is the Coppa Italia final. Atalanta versus Juventus. That will be on the CBS Sports Network and Paramount Plus. Coverage begins at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, that is on Wednesday. Atalanta with a big 2-1 win over Roma this past weekend. And Juve, pretty disappointing draw against Salernitana, 1-1. Wes McKennie started that game, played 45 minutes. Timo Weah did not dress, but that's because he was suspended. So overall, quick predictions before we go to our next break on the Coppa Italia final. Who do you like, Atalanta or Juventus, Jesse?
Atalanta, they're playing amazing football right now. I don't see them losing.
But Juve's Juve. They know how to win trophies in their sleep. Chuck, what are you going? Who are you going with?
They'll defend.
Atalanta. I mean,
is that because you want to see Atalanta, or
they want? They smashed Liverpool at Anfield.
I did.
How could you bet against them right now?
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Damn,
I want
Jimmy.
Atalanta to win too. I'm just saying. Maxi
Allegri, 7 wins and 1 draw in the last 8.
Hey,
Sorry,
Boston
6 wins and 1 draw in the last 7.
Don't forget that Boston owns Steve Pagliuca.
No, it's gonna be a great game. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, that game's
on
on Wednesday. Coverage starts on P+, CBS Sports Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, we're gonna take our next break. I'll call it what you want. When we come back, we're gonna talk about some kid named Cavan Sullivan. So don't go anywhere.
From the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, is there anyone stronger?
No.
Tougher?
No.
Hungrier?
Grapes was an interesting choice for someone who doesn't use fingers.
Knuckles, now streaming only on Paramount Plus.
He's going to play at the very highest level that this sport has. Right now, we think this is the best environment for him to play in a place where we have full belief in him. He has a great support system. He has his family here. He has a brother in the locker room that can kind of show him the way. We have a pretty good identity as a club that, has a good experience group that also will help a young player reach their maximum. So the sky's the limit, right? I think we all understand that. And he is going to go to the absolute highest level, and that's our job. He'll do his job on the field as a 14-year-old kid to play hard every day and thrive and get better. That's all he's really responsible to do, and it's our job to create the environment. And if we both do our work, I think this is going to be pretty special.
My mindset in and of itself is one of my best qualities. I'm usually level-headed, and I think despite all the noise and whether it's positive or negative, I sort of just I'm focused on my game and my development. It doesn't really get to me whether it's good or bad. So yeah.
All right, those are the words of Cavan Sullivan. The latter part of that. The first part was Philadelphia Union coach Jim Curtin. And I really love how everybody's approaching this particular situation. For those that don't know, Cavan Sullivan just signed a record MLS homegrown deal with the Philadelphia Union. And then when he turns 18, the plan is for him to go to Manchester City. Now, he made his debut this past weekend to become the youngest ever player to debut in MLS. Freddie Adu was number 1, Julian Hall number 2, Alphonso Davies 3, Matai Akinminboni number 4, and then Obed Vargas number 5. What are we saying about this particular situation? Jesse, I'll come to you. Speaking, and maybe you can piggyback off what Jim Curtin was saying about creating the path and the environment for him to grow and thrive.
Yeah, well, Philadelphia Union, I think, has done an amazing job at that. And YSC and their academy and everything that they've done to create a true academy development system, I think, is at the forefront of every club right now in America. So I think that Cavan is in the right place right now. I would like to talk more about the idea of going to Man City at 18 years old. Like, for me, that's not the best move. Like, I know that Man City's a big club and they've developed a lot of players, but even when you look at Erling Haaland, right? Like Erling Haaland went Molde to Salzburg to Dortmund to Man City. And I think that the decision to stay at Philadelphia Union is 100% the right decision. But I think no matter how talented a player is, right, and what the potential and the feelings of people that are around him, it is so very important that players understand how to take incremental steps in their career to give themselves the best chance of having the smoothest learning curve and development path. And that's the only thing. Going from Philadelphia Union to Man City is a massive jump. And I don't know that even Erling Haaland could have mastered that when he was 18, right? Like, you need to then go somewhere where you're playing in Europe, where you're adjusting, adapting, where you're learning the way the game works, where culture works, everything. There's a lot to learn when you go over to Europe and understand what the game means at different places. So listen, this kid, the the sky does seem the limit for him, but so much of players achieving their potential is about their ability to take the right steps at the right time.
Chuck, I know you're ready to jump in. I'm going to go first because I think what I love the most about this situation, because there seemed to be a lot of unknown about what he was going to do, what was best for his future. I like the clarity that now exists. I agree with Jesse that jump to Man City at 18 is going to be a difficult one, and I assume there's going to be some plan in place. But the clarity of, hey, you're going to be with Philly. We're going to do whatever we can. Obviously, having dialogue with Man City to make sure that everything is ticking all the boxes at each milestone, right? Hey, at 15, this is where you should be, or at least is where we hope you're going to be. And you keep continuing to grow from there so that when he does make the move, it feels as seamless of a transition as possible. And it's not just this, because we've seen it before, like a hastily bought player who's younger, super talented. Then you just throw him over into the mixer of Europe, and it just doesn't feel like there's the foundation is in place. Now I feel like we have a lot of runway for this particular player. But yeah, jump in here. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I played for the Union, so I got a good chance to see what the academy is like, and they have a lot of talent. Great coaching. I think when you talk about tactics and philosophy, it's more about technique and getting these kids the opportunity to get first team minutes and professional minutes at such an early age, which is really impressive. But if you're looking at a sample size, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, Anthony Fontana, right? Some of these young players who came through the system and did extremely well, they had a lot of trouble making the jump to Europe at the start initially. And Manchester City, that might be the Manchester City now for Cavan. If you're thinking, okay, Pep Guardiola system, Pep's not going to be there in 4 years. I can promise you that.
Good point.
Pep's not going to be there in 4 years. He's not going to be the Manchester City manager in 4 years. So then you're going to think, you know how clubs go in these different cycles depending on the manager, the sporting director. Things can change. Philosophies can change. And Manchester City is the club that they buy the best players available in the world. So, you know, breaking through a system, you're going to get there at 18, probably be with the reserve team at best case scenario. You're not going into the first team. And then it's a year or two. I've always been a proponent of going to the best club, like Jesse said, 4-year level, where you're going to get first team minutes. You may not even start right away, but at least you're involved with the first team, coming in off the bench, getting the right minutes, getting a good foundation, having the relationship with the coach who has the time to groom you. That it's not, hey, I got to win now and I got to win with the best players. And if you're ready in 6 months to a year or 2 years, great. If you're not, well, we have 5 people already in the pipeline. So for a player of his quality, and I'm really pleased with what I've seen from him, just his creativity and his touch on the ball, but his decision making at this age, the 1v1, he's super confident, almost that ego that you need to have to be a star player. He has that. But
you could see it on his face when he was sitting there in the press conference.
Yeah. He's got the edge. He's got the edge.
He's like, I don't even want to be here. I don't even want to be here, man. This is my first press conference. I don't even want to be here.
I absolutely love that. But
I love it.
In terms of the right club for him, so many things can change in 4 years. Think about the players we've seen, and we even talked about making their MLS debut. Where's Matai Akamboni right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Where's Julian Hall in terms of his progress right now? Alphonso Davies was a gem. That there's no question about that. But even a Freddie Adu at 14, you could argue who's the world's best player for young kids. The world's best player, without a doubt. Incredible. But 4 years, a lot can change. People grow, people mature, people lose confidence, people get in the wrong coach.
I will say this. We played Leeds with our second group, right? We had during the World Cup, we had some matches that we planned for like the top 12, 13 players, and maybe we had a couple subs in those games, and then we arranged some for like our second group, a little bit younger group. We went down to play the Man City 21s. They beat our second team 3-0. 3-0. And it probably wasn't even that close. and I couldn't believe the quality, right? So it is a good, it will be a good training environment. But I tell you, Man City is one of these clubs that collects players. They develop them and they put them in 21. And maybe one player emerges out of that group. The rest they sell. They sell for 15, 20. They buy them for 2 million, 4 million, and they sell them for 15, 25. Listen, all the big clubs in England do that. It's still a business. But
hey,
and that's fine.
Jesse,
that's fine. They didn't even have club model.
They didn't have room for Cole Palmer.
Sorry, go ahead.
They didn't have room for Cole Palmer in their team.
Exactly.
That's all you need
but
to say.
No.
Model.
They had room for him in the first team, but not the playing time that Cole Palmer wanted.
Okay.
And Pep said, "You know what?
Well, yeah, but
I will let you go."
But still, Cole Palmer made absolutely the right decision in getting out of there.
Yeah,
no doubt. Right?
Facts.
Because no matter what, as good as Cole Palmer is, they're going to next window, they're buying 2 more players that play his position that they're buying for 50, 60 million, right? This is the club model they have. So listen, that's my only thing. It's every club can have their own model. And one of the things I love about Man City is they have a very clear structure and model and playing structure and business model. But you have to ask yourself when you're a young player, when you're a father or parent of a young player, and how do you give your child the best chance to live his life in a way that gives him the best chance to achieve potential as a person first, and as a player, right? And so that's the only question. You know, I know Man City's a big name, and sometimes you get attracted to these big names and big contracts and big money, but in the end, listen, this is the same talk I had with Matt Miazga. This is the same talk. Like, this is why Tyler Adams, the way we handled Tyler with the way that things went, and there's different moments for different players at different times, but finding the appropriate level, right, to challenge players, but also give them the opportunity to fail and succeed will often determine how quickly and if they can ever achieve their potential.
For me, Jimmy, just quick, Man City, right? They come in for the most highly sought after U.S. talent in Cavan Sullivan. It's the name, it's the brand, it's the money, right? That's the clear, obvious answer. But if you told me Ajax, PSV,
Salzburg,
Dortmund,
Salzburg,
but a little bit higher. I mean, just a little.
No, that's where Erwin Holland started. Show some respect to Salzburg.
You know, but I'm saying in terms of that, I think he's in the best place possible because they're investing in him to play right away, and he's going to get those opportunities. And the expectation is you're developing young talent, yes, versus a Manchester City who are usually getting the final product at 23, 21 to 23. Final product is in. They're ready to go right now. They've already proven themselves at the highest level, probably playing already at a Dortmund, ISV, PSV, Ajax, PSV, and then bringing them in. So I think obviously it can happen. Anything can happen, but it is a tall mountain to climb to walk into the Prem at 18 to a top club.
In the end, Jimmy, sorry, we're not giving you a chance to talk, Jimmy.
That's okay.
In the end, I hope the kid blows the roof off.
I'll complain about it later.
I really hope he goes to Philly and Jimmy will take care of him. He'll have opportunities to play. He'll do great at Philly. I think that's an absolute no-brainer. What a great decision. And I hope that he shows week in and week out how good he is so that when he goes to Man City at 18, they can't wait to get him and they're going to give him a real chance. Give him a real chance to be part of the actual Man City club,
to play
right?
in the reserve
and if
team,
that's the case, like then I'll gladly eat all of our words right here, right? That in the end, we just want this kid. We want this kid to have the best possible career and show everybody how good he is.
Well, I think Eric Palmer Brown is a good story. He left Kansas City to go to Man City and then went off into the loaned out wilderness and.
It's a lonely world.
It is a lonely world. We've had him on the show before. We've talked to him about that journey. And even though he's become stronger, both on and off the field as a player and as a human, it's not as romantic as we all hope it's going to be for Cavan Sullivan in particular. And I remember there was a kid at Barcelona who was in the La Masia Academy, Ben something. And then the whole fallout with their youth academy happened and he had to move on to somewhere else. I don't even know where that kid is. And I don't even remember his name fully, but there was a lot of hype around this particular kid that he's I don't know if in the same conversation as Cavan Sullivan, but wow, we have a young American in one of the most famous youth academies in the world. This kid is going to be an absolute baller, and I don't even know where he's playing. Belgium, Eredivisie. I have no idea exactly what his trajectory was. Maybe we should have him on the show. He can tell us a little bit about it. But Ben Letterman, thank you so much, and he's playing in Poland right now. And so that was unknown to me, but again, I mean, obviously we love hyping up our youngest players in this particular country, and we've done it time and time again. And I think Freddie Adu was a big catalyst for us, and knowing Freddie and getting to play against him, I think from what I'm hearing from Cavan and saying how he's just like, I haven't made it. I'm just getting started. I love that mentality. I don't know if Freddie Adu was saying the same thing. So I think from a mentality standpoint, I'm already giving Cavan the
Cavan's not doing commercials with Pelé. So that's probably
not yet.
And also taking into account that Freddie happened before Cavan. So now, unfortunately, Freddie is the poster child of being overhyped, right? So that works in the benefit of Cavan, because he can look at Freddie Adu and go, okay, he was having commercials with Pelé. He was on TRL. He was the biggest thing going in this country, and he was the promotion for Major League Soccer. TRL, man. Those are the days. And
I love that's our gold standard. That's our gold standard. He was on TRL, man. He was on
he could never live up to those expectations. Never in the professional game.
Never.
Maybe youth national team, but never in the professional game. Absolutely no chance. And so
I want to get Freddie on the show. I really want to get him on the show, because I obviously he's one of very few that can speak to, I think, this journey that Cavan's about to go on. All right, last question before we let everybody go and we end the show. What should be the realistic expectations, Jesse Marsch and Charlie? You're next, of Cavan Sullivan over the next few years in MLS. What should be?
That's a good question.
What's his stats? I just want to make sure, basically. Because I don't even know if it's stats, right? I mean, well, yes, we want to see some end product from him, of course. But I guess I just want to make sure that we're basing things in reality and not overhyping him, and for our audience in particular. What do you think should be the realistic expectations over the next few years?
Well, I think in the first year can he establish himself as a starter, right? Can he establish himself as a guy that plays every game and that the coach can absolutely count on? In year two, can he help now establish himself as an important attacking player and now start add up to more points and goals and assists and all this? And in year three, can he be a key piece to a team that's pushing for a championship and one of the best players on the pitch every match? Right? That should be the standard. But again, we can't expect that in year one. In year one, it's just give the kid a chance to integrate into the team, get him on, see how he does in games. I would expect that Jim will manage that carefully and intelligently and give him the best chance to succeed. So, and again, I based on what I've seen of him and what everybody says, you would think that progression is realistic and not too low and not too high. Right? That it gives him time to grow 3 years into the team so that he can start to show how good his quality is and how good a player he can be in 3 years.
Charlie, I think you're wanting 20 goals and 10 assists by year three from him?
No, it's not the stats in terms of his production and goals and assists. It's more minutes played. What part of the field is he getting touches on, those type of stats, those numbers, because, MLS, it can be, what's the best way to put it? In terms of numbers, right? In stats, you can shade it any which way you want, where players get these goals and assists, and all of a sudden either the public or they themselves think that they've made it, or they're at a certain level, right? And I think it's, how do you play the game? How do you read the game? The decision making. And for Cavan Sullivan to come into a team in midfield where he should get time. Alejandro Bedoya is 37 and he's starting. He's the captain. That's a midfield that they could use some rotations, and he's going to get an opportunity to play. And I think Jim Curtin's very good with younger players. I think that's one of his best skill sets, is his ability to connect with a younger player, because he coached younger players before getting the Philadelphia Union job. And he's a great person.
He's young at heart. That's the key with Jim.
One of the nicest guys I've ever come across in the business. So great guy. And so to connect with a younger player like Cavan Sullivan and give him, some ideas, give him some confidence, that's going to be massive for a young player. And he's got his brother in the locker room too. It's almost a win-win. It's a perfect situation to come into the pro game and get playing time and understand there's going to be ups and downs, and to have that support system that he's going to have in the locker room is going to be massive. So for me, similar to Jesse, how can he figure out a way to add value to the impact to the Union now? The impact being a younger player coming in your first minutes, settling in, and then versus playing to his strengths, right? There's always, as a first year professional, you're trying to figure out how do you get into this team, not, upset people, trying to be yourself and do too much, and then figuring out, okay, what's the right balance versus year 2, year 3, where he's playing his style the way he's always played coming in, and just being quicker on the ball, because in MLS, he's going to see it's not MLS Next Pro. It's not USL. This is real competition, and guys are going to be flying much stronger, much quicker, much faster. So everything he does, he's got to do it at least twice as fast now.
And listen, playing with and against Freddie, like, he has a target on his back, right? So Cavan's going to come in, and no grown man out there is going to want to get shown up by this punk kid, right? And that's just going to be part of the perception of Cavan Sullivan, and it's going to be part of the PR hype machine that's going to happen, that's already happening around him. So I really want to encourage our audience that, yes, we're excited about his potential and where he can go, but let's be realistic and allow him to make mistakes, allow him to allow him to grow in some ways. I've got my dad hat on right now, but I just want to be really thoughtful. I mean, we got a kid who's super special and has been identified and continues to be consistently special. And I want to make sure that there's room for him to be a kid still, as he's learning how to be a professional and how to grow into being an adult as well.
I tell you, Jimmy, often what makes guys, young men like him, different is it doesn't faze them, right? Like Tyler Adams was like this, like the pressure again about playing in front of fans, playing in big stadiums, playing against big players, playing against men, expectations, throw it all out.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the job of Jimmy is to create an environment for him to succeed. But the reason why he's special is because not just his talent, but his mentality. And I'm sure he's going to show that.
And just to put it in context, that mentality, Eden Hazard was the same way. It was like he didn't care about the opponent, about the game. He just said, give me the ball. The nerves don't affect me. The club name doesn't affect me. So I want to give a shout out to some of the guys in the comments: Matt Christopher, Rafa Cardenas, and Red Fox, Life of Bride. These people have always been in the comments supporting the show. Some respect. And I'm not taking a shot at Akamboni. I know he's at DC
there too.
Yes,
Thomas is a big fan. He called it
Mueller.
foosball, but
Nice
it's fine. It's fine. Well, I'm glad that you brought up all the comments in particular, and look at me taking on Freddie Adu in the All-Star game.
Wow, well done, Ibis.
Wow.
I know Ibis found that real nice. Look at the total 90.
Jimmy or Freddie?
Total 90 boots Freddie's got on there.
That's a good question. I don't know who is younger, but yeah, those boots were pretty sick. I was a Predator guy, so I had the old school Preds on.
Okay.
But that was in DC.
I remember that play. He megged you right there.
Nah, this is all rumor and speculation.
He rolled it back and then Meg with the right foot. Yeah, I remember.
Well, I'm glad you brought up all the comments, Chuck, because we're having a mailbag edition next Monday on the show. So now you can send in your questions. Okay, you can drop them in the YouTube comments right now in the Q&A section, or in the Q&A section, if you're listening on Spotify or on our social handles, CBS Sports Golazo. Go make that happen. Hit us up personally. We want to answer all the questions that you have for us, so make sure you go and do that. And I'm curious to see what the audience is going to come up with. So that should be a lot of fun. That is next Monday. And obviously, make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. Take a few seconds to leave us a rating. We'd really appreciate that. And then catch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network anytime you want. And that's it. I'm calling it a show, guys. I'm calling it a show. So that's it. Thank you so much for your love and support. It's what I do. It's just what I do. And have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you very soon. Later.